is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
How do you improve in these other areas without sacrificing too much on the offense? Because we know there's only so much time in a day and you can only emphasize so many things. And we've been elite offensively because we emphasize it. It is what it is. Like, we spend a lot of time on it and we talk about it. And it's part of the culture, what we do. And so just figuring out how to improve without sacrificing too much of what's made us successful. Those have been the main themes of our conversations.
Jon Jaques is entering his first season as the men's basketball head coach at Cornell University. Jaques has spent more than a decade as an assistant coach in the Ivy League, including the last 12 at Cornell. He's assisted in the development of 12 Big Red All-Ivy selections, including 5 first-teamers and 2 CoSIDA Academic All-Americans. Prior to Cornell, Jaques was part of Kyle Smith's 2012-2013 staff at Columbia. Jon began his coaching career at Stevens Institute of Technology under head coach Bobby Hurley in 2011. Jaques was a 4-year member of the Cornell basketball team and a senior captain, emerging as a starter in his final season and developing into one of the nation's most improved players after playing a total of 108 minutes and scoring 33 points through his first 3 years. Jaques and his teammates won an Ivy League record 29 games and advanced to the NCAA Sweet 16, defeating nationally ranked opponents Temple and Wisconsin before falling to overall number 1 seed Kentucky in the regional semifinals. In his 4 seasons on the team, Cornell went 88-33, including 47-9 in Ivy League play, and won 3 outright Ivy League titles. Hey, Hoopheads, Dr. Dish Basketball's back-to-school sale is here. From now until August 30th, you can get $3,000 off the industry's leading shooting machine, the Dr. Dish CT Plus. In addition, the first 200 customers will also receive a free Dr. Dish IC3 shot trainer to use at the school or keep for themselves. Shop now at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Devin Durant, former NBA player and author of the book, The Values Delta, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its Playbank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Grab a notebook and be prepared to take some notes as you listen to this episode with Jon Jaques, men's basketball head coach at Cornell University. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here without my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight, but I am pleased to be joined by the head men's basketball coach at Cornell University, Jon Jaques. Jon, welcome to the Hoopheads pod.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me very much.
Excited to have you on. Looking forward to diving into all the things that you've been able to do throughout your career. Let's start by going back in time to when you were a kid. Tell me a little bit about your first experiences with the game of basketball. What made you fall in love with it?
Man, the first thing I can remember about playing basketball growing up was just, doing rec league basketball at the local park when I was 4 or 5. And I was definitely that kid who, was inconsolable and cried and was that guy when I lost games, I do remember that. So at a young age, I cared. I know that much for sure. But I know my dad was, helped coach those teams and he was involved and, he never played at a high level, but loved the game and was around and supported it. And so, I do remember that and, I enjoyed it, enjoyed being part of teams always. And I do remember a few years later when I got older, elementary school, maybe that's when AAU started becoming a thing, and that entered the picture. And I remember one of my classmates' fathers, encouraged me to try out for a club team, and I had no idea what that was at the time, and I don't think my family knew either. But that kind of, exposed me to basketball and playing on the weekends and taking it more seriously and entering that world where you have, a lot of attention and focus on skills and opportunities to play. And so that was kind of my entry into playing more seriously. I grew up playing baseball too, and I'm not 36 years old. I know it's changing. People become more specialized every single year, I think. But at that time, I played baseball through maybe junior year in high school. But at some point, basketball was a sport that we gravitated towards, became better at, and was naturally more of a fit. And so, as I got older, high school, that's when I really devoted myself to it. Figured being a Division I player and a way to get into college and take that next step was a real possibility.
What did taking the game more seriously look like for you? And then maybe compare and contrast that to what it looks like for the guys on your team and the guys that you're recruiting now in terms of your development. How much time was spent in the gym by yourself working on your game, pickup games, with a trainer at all at that point? Just tell me a little bit about kind of how you got better as a high school player, kind of in preparation for the opportunity to maybe play at the college level. Sure.
I was fortunate to, I went to a pretty competitive high school, basketball wise and academically too. The school, Harvard Westlake in Southern California. So you're super lucky and grateful for that opportunity on and off the court. So it was a legit basketball program. My high school coach was this guy, Greg Hilliard, very successful high school coach, and kind of instilled like a seriousness to the game that I think was new to me when I entered the program as a 9th, 10th grader, so working on your game and playing as much as you can. And so that was important to be a part of a program that I think, made it fun, made it serious, and made being a part of a team something that you enjoyed and aspired to. And the stuff that I love about college basketball now, as far as getting better, I would walk, sometimes run, sometimes have a parent who was around drive me to a local park, and I would shoot by myself. And I don't know how many guys do that now. And just chase you on rebound. It's a good motivation to start making shots and create different, silly games for yourself. But that was what I did most of the time outside of school, honestly. I didn't have a older sibling or anything to play with, and which I know is common for a lot of guys growing up. You're just playing ones and cutting your teeth that way. But for me, I was shooting, and that's probably why I made some shots growing up and in college, and just, imaginary games and challenging myself that way. And I know some of our guys do that now because we talk about that, but I obviously trainers and workouts are more part of the equation than they used to be. And there's a time and a place for that for sure. But I hope, and our guys know this too. We talk about playing so much, and whether it's ones or twos or threes and getting up and down, that's the best way to grow, but also have fun. So, I didn't do much of the skill workout stuff when I had practices with high school or, club stuff. Of course, there was always the skill component and ball handling, which I never got good at really, but the passing and shooting, of course. And that was always part of it. But I grew to love the game a lot by myself, to be honest.
When you went to the park or you were shooting by yourself, did you go in with a plan, or was it more improvisational? I'm just showing up at the court and then, okay, I'm devising games and kind of using my creativity and imagination in the moment.
I remember having some sort of plan, like a routine that I would do. And then eventually, I end up improvising a little bit, but I still do it sometimes to this day to stay in shape, but just, picking spots and, you got to make 3 in a row. You got to make 5 in a row and move on to the next spot, and sometimes be there forever if it was a rough day. And so things like that, where you make yourself finish a segment, finish a goal. That worked for me. And eventually you move on to other things and create, like you said, create games and things like that. And if someone else showed up at the park, maybe occasionally you'd play ones, but yeah, like I was shooting and trying to, figure out how the ball felt off my hand and how to move and how to step into the shot. And you do see a lot now when our guys are in the gym, it's not so much we try to get them to have a plan when they're out there, and you don't have to shoot a million shots to get something out of a workout, So I wouldn't stay super long, honestly. Maybe if I was missing, I would, but you set some goals and you check those off, and it was kind of a good workout for me if I was, efficient. So I think that's something that we try to instill here. Like, you don't have to be in the gym for hours and hours and hours, and efficiency and having a purpose works most of the time.
That pace, right? I mean, I think that's a big part of when you're talking about a higher level of basketball and getting your work in, is what's the pace that you're going at. Obviously, you want to be able to shoot things that are game speed. And if you're, as you said, you're getting an opportunity to go with or against somebody else, now you can throw in some decisions and all those things that are obviously beneficial in a dynamic game like basketball. So yeah, it's interesting just how the development of players has changed over the years. And I'm a lot older than you. I graduated from college in 92. So my world of growing up and trying to figure things out, completely different. I mean, there was no such thing as a trainer. There was barely AAU. Like, I grew up here in Cleveland. We had, I think, 2 teams. That there was a team from the west side of Cleveland, a team from the east side of Cleveland. And those 2 teams, we didn't travel really anywhere. There was just a couple, there's a couple games, and that was pretty much it. Played in a few tournaments, and it just was a completely different. I was on my own doing workouts and whatever. And then I look at now what is available to kids, just in terms of, it's hard for them to sort through what they have to do. I mean, just in terms of YouTube and the creativity and all the things. Like, I did the same workout from the time I was a high school player all the way through my college career. I mean, I just did the same thing. I had one workout when I had one person with me, and I had one workout I did when I was by myself. And otherwise, I just kind of had the same routine. And now I look at all this stuff and I'm like, man, I was kind of boring just going through and doing all this stuff instead of being creative. So it is interesting to think about how different the player development has been over the course of the years in terms of just how players get better and improve. And so I know that from talking to lots of coaches, including yourself, that's something that they're always talking to their guys about is, hey, when you get in the gym by yourself, like, what does that look like? And how can you put the time in? And what does that look like in terms of improving? And like you said, you don't have to be in there for 4 hours shooting. It's more about your pace and your efficiency. What do you think about, or when did you start to think about having a college career? At what point did that get on your radar where you put that as a goal? And then when did it sort of become real that you thought, hey, I'm really going to have an opportunity to do this?
I think my, high school coaches, they see who's like tall and who has some game, I guess, when they come into their program. So I do remember a conversation with my coach and my parents, and said like, hey, there's a chance. I was probably 6'5", 6'6" when I got into the high school, so I remember him thinking or saying to my parents, like, hey, there's a chance, like this could work, and you got to do this and you got to do that and work hard, clearly. And I don't remember it being a goal until then, honestly. But I was working hard. I loved the game. So to hear that, it was like, oh, like that, this is the next step, and it's realistic. And, I was, like I said, lucky to be part of a program that it's a good school, very good school, academically, and Ivy League schools do, we still know like it's a program we should be recruiting and talking to. And,
right.
So I'm thankful for that. And there were schools coming through the gym all the time. And so I'm fortunate. I know a lot of high school players do not have that exposure. And that's something that, through social media and YouTube and all film and all that stuff, people can find ways around, but still it helps to be part of a good program that people know about. And so, yeah, like I was seen a little bit, and had very talented teammates. I played with, guys who went to Bryce Taylor, went to Oregon, and Alex Stevenson was in my class. He went to North Carolina and eventually transferred to USC. So, I was never close to that level, but people were in the gym, and Ivy League schools were in the gym. So that was my recruiting path, mostly Ivy League schools, some local like UC schools, D2 schools, stuff like that. But it became kind of clear maybe end of junior year, early senior year that Ivy League was a route that fit me, like highly competitive basketball, but also for guys who take the world outside of basketball seriously and are high achieving and care about it. And so that was what we focused on, my family, and, through that process, got to know the schools and fell in love with Cornell, and, now I'm here. So, whatever it is, 18 years later, it's crazy, but,
there it is. You've spent the bulk of your adult life there, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, almost entirely, which is, I would have expected, but, I'm thrilled the way it worked out. And it is crazy how a choice you make when you're 17, 18 years old can, it does just alter the course of your life. But, in my case, for the better. It's been an awesome journey, and very happy with where I am.
What was your level of knowledge with the Ivy League, just in terms of the schools, but also in terms of the basketball prior to the recruiting process starting to take place? How much did you know about Ivy League basketball, being, again, way out in California?
Not much at all, honestly. I watched. I was a college basketball junkie, and I still am, clearly. But growing up, like high school, I was watching games every weeknight, on the weekends, like all day. Pac-10 was our thing, but I was watching basketball. But Ivy League, it wasn't the way it is now. Like right now, we have an ESPN Plus, deal and coverage. So all of our games, nearly every single game, all season, and every single conference game is covered on ESPN. So if this were, 18 years ago and we had the same coverage, I probably would have watched Ivy League basketball, but I didn't at the time. I didn't know much about it until people started recruiting me. And I got to know the programs quickly, because I was into it and wanted to see who was doing well and, get to know the player. I remember like studying the rosters and then eventually watching some of their games and getting to know teams and where I was a fit and all that stuff. So I dove into it pretty quickly, but the league is, it's so much better now. It's pretty, I don't feel, I have no hesitation saying that. I think most people would agree. It's so much better and so much deeper, more competitive, intense. And, we finished as a top 10 league in the country last year in Ken Palm. So when I entered the league and when I was being recruited, it wasn't that way. I always say, like, it was kind of, at the time, it was a league for smart guys who like basketball, and now it's the opposite. It's like hoopers who can play anywhere in the country are studs, but they choose to go this route because they appreciate, what the degree does for them and how life altering it is. But to answer your question, I didn't have too much exposure to it. I didn't have any family in that world and didn't follow it too closely. But once I started getting recruited, I was into it for sure.
What made Cornell the place that you ended up choosing over some of the other schools in the Ivy that may have been recruiting you?
So, I remember taking a trip with my family, to the East Coast, because it was a lot of Ivy attention. And so spring of my junior year, saw a few schools, and there was an assistant at Cornell at the time. His name was Izzy Metz. I think he's the head coach at Wilkes-Barre, a D3 school in Pennsylvania now. He was awesome. Like, got to know me, my family was great. Wanted to come see the place, and he was saying something that I still say to this day. Like, you got to see it to appreciate it. You got to see it. We can talk about it. We can send you pictures and all that, but you have to see it and you'll know it's for you. You'll know whether it's for you or not. And so, we are fully transparent. Ithaca, New York is not the easiest place to get to in the world. So like, if someone makes the effort and investment to get out here, we take them seriously. Like it shows a lot of interest and, just seriousness on the family's part. So that was us. That was my family. Went for visit a few other Ivy schools, drove up to Ithaca, and just it blew my mind, honestly, the campus and the culture and the vibe. It's a large campus, and it's the largest Ivy League school, largest campus in the Ivy League, largest student body population in the Ivy League, and it feels like your true college experience. We always say it's like the Ivy League's version of a Big Ten or SEC school, because it is. Like it's that big, and a college town feel. So if that's what you want, it's awesome. And just me growing up watching college basketball and, watching games on TV with sold out crowds and just packed student sections and the whole nine. That's what I wanted, but I also wanted the great degree. So this fit me. I got to know the head coach very well, Steve Donahue, who's obviously a huge influence on me still to this day and why I'm doing this, but he was just awesome in the recruiting process and, someone I'm trying to emulate now, really like getting to know the guys I'm recruiting and being involved in it. And he was great. And so I took a couple officials in the fall of my senior year. And, at that point you're just meeting your teammates and that was what made the experience here special for me. Ultimately, it was the experience and the campus and the education clearly, but my teammates here were like, special, like the chemistry we had and everything we did. So yeah, that was why. Everything fit as far as the campus and the fit and the basketball fit and all that stuff, but seeing it and experiencing it, that put it over the edge. And so, it was an easy decision at the end of the day for me.
What were you thinking about academically, career-wise, as an incoming freshman?
So I was pre-med coming in. It's crazy to think about now. It was not for me. But we have a couple pre-med guys.
How long did it take you to figure that out?
Oh man, I made it like a year and a quarter. And then I took organic chemistry first semester sophomore year, and I tried really hard. I got all the tutors and all the help, and really, I'd be honest if I didn't apply myself, but I did. I was trying, and it wasn't clicking. And so that's one of those classes where I just decided it wasn't worth it, and so I changed to biology and society. It's kind of like a public health major, sort of like intersection of science and technology and the public and how they all affect each other. And eventually I did go to public health school for a year at Columbia when I was a graduate manager there. So, that fit into that, but that also fed into, my entry into like the Kyle Smith coaching tree. And so I'm thankful for that. Clearly that was just an awesome life-changing experience being there for a year. But yeah, pre-med for a year and eventually altered course, and pretty happy I did.
Was coaching on your mind while you were playing, or was that something that you didn't really think about till you were done playing? Because I always say that on our pod, we've talked to so many people, and it seems like coaches fall into one of two categories. Either there's somebody who is just a player, they're focused on playing, they're playing, and then all of a sudden their playing career is done. Then they look around and be like, man, I can't just leave the game. I got to figure out a way to stay involved, and they get in coaching that way. And then there's other people who, from the time they were 8 years old, they're drawing plays on napkins, and they've kind of think of themselves as a coach on the floor, and they kind of thought about the game from a coaching perspective. And so I don't know if either one of those descriptions fits sort of where you were or where the path that you followed.
I was definitely the former, I was so, I guess I was in between, but mostly the former. I was so like all in and invested in what we were doing as a team here. Just like all Cornell basketball all the time, seriously, and invested in what we had going on. And when you were winning like we were when I was playing, it was so much fun. And to be part of that kind of experience and that group and the teammates I mentioned and the coaching staff and just the rise of popularity and excitement on campus and basketball, like all of that was, that's what I was thinking about. Like, how do I get better? How do I be a part of this? How do I inch us forward? And so coaching wasn't on my mind. I mean, but I did know and appreciate that I was thinking about the game a little differently than some of my teammates maybe. Like I appreciated the X's and O's we were talking about and the strategy, and I was thinking about why Coach Donahue was doing this or why they have us doing this in practice. So I do remember sort of thinking critically about like what we were doing and being excited and curious and all that stuff. So that sort of, those are good cues that would suggest that I would like it. But I was, to your point, like we finished playing, had a awesome experience, NCAA tournament run, all that stuff. And then it ended, pretty abruptly. Lost to Kentucky in the Sweet 16. And like you said, like, what do you do now? And I had teammates, very talented teammates, borderline NBA players. One ended up playing in the NBA for a little bit. And so, these guys were doing these big things and I wasn't nearly on that level, but to stay involved in the game sounded fun and I didn't know what else to do, honestly. So yeah, I played for a year, and during that year, that's when I was like, yeah, coaching could be for me a little bit. You had more time to think about it. And as I'm sure you've heard from talking to people, you play overseas and it's awesome. Like I would never complain. You're getting paid to play basketball. And I was in Israel and it was a blast and had an apartment on the beach and it was the best, but you don't have the same sense of community and camaraderie and culture and chemistry that you do in college. You just don't. Different agendas and people trying to score and get to the next level and all that stuff. So that it kind of reminded me and cemented for me what I enjoyed about my experience the most. And that was being a part of a group that was doing special things and cared about each other and sacrificed for each other and create and being a part of that as an adult and helping young people have that similar type of experience seemed like something that I would like to do and try to scratch that itch any way I could. So as soon as I got back, I was trying to figure out ways to get involved and starting coaching. And so that's a long way of answering your question. I don't think I ever thought about it until maybe after I stopped playing, but there were signs that I would enjoy it and I'd be meant to do this, I think.
Once you thought, hey, maybe this is a possibility, who was the first person that you talked to about it?
Coach Donahue, for sure. And still to this day, for anything, he's someone who clearly I trust, and I know he's going to give a just unbiased and straight opinion. I know he cares about me, so yeah, he was the first person I called, and I think he tried to talk me out of it, which I wonder if he remembers that, but he definitely tried to talk me out of it. But he was like, yeah, if you want to do this, like, let's try it. And so he put me in touch with, Stevens Tech, the head coach there, Bobby Hurley. And that was purely just to get your feet wet, see if you like it. And at the time I was living in, North Jersey with my girlfriend then, now my wife, and she's from the area. So we were there and, I had a small job on the side to make some money, but I was serious about the coaching thing and committed to it. And Bobby was awesome, like just super cool and let me run with it. Player development, scouting reports, being a part of everything they were doing and for a pretty good veteran team. So that was fun. But yeah, Coach D was the first call for sure.
Right away when you started that, all right, this is where I belong.
I don't remember if I knew for sure, but I knew I wanted to take it a step further. Like I was like, yeah, this is great. And I got to see if, what the next step is. And, yeah, I don't know. Like I was still, I guess, hedging my bets, a little bit. And so, like I mentioned before, was trying to figure out where to go to grad school. Like seemed like a good idea. And you know, get into a good school, see what happens, but see if that school needs help with the basketball staff and a grad manager, grad assistant, whatever you want to call it. And my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, were trying to like coordinate, and like the overthinking, you know, like Ivy League people we were trying to like figure out where to go and like how to figure this out. And I remember there were a few options, but Columbia, you know, clearly not a bad spot. And again, Coach D put me in touch with Coach Smith, Kyle at Columbia. And he's one of the smartest guys out there. And I think he was like, sure, why not? A 6'7" guy who played it in the Sweet 16. Like, you can't hurt our program. And so he was fine with me showing up and trying to help. And yeah, I mean, that was, you know, one of the best decisions I made, to go there and be with them and that coaching staff, and just, you know, all those guys. It's been well documented by a bunch of people, but how successful that whole staff has been going forward, and just to learn from them, be around them, the success they've had and the way they think. And that was when I was around them and how they operated and how seriously they took it and how every detail mattered, and how much they cared for the guys and all of it. That's what I knew then, kind of, that's what I wanted to do. Like I knew to be one of them or be like them, that was it. And so I think once I, you know, had that, I went through a year at Columbia, and it was awesome. And they, a spot at Cornell opened that summer, and Kyle basically kicked me out the door. He was like, you got to go do this, even though I had 1 year left of my grad program. He was like, you got to do it. And again, I was like, I don't know, like, should I get the graduate degree? And he was like, if you don't, I think if I had come back, he would have kicked me off the staff, because he was like, this is your alma mater. You got to do this. If you go there and it goes well,
right,
you could end up, you know, where I am today. So he knew, and he's, you know, one of the smartest guys in college basketball. So I'm glad I listened to him. It was the right decision.
All right, coaches, listen up. It's time to kick this season up a notch and give your team the competitive edge they deserve with Game Changer. Game Changer is the ultimate tool for coaches, with features designed to help take your team to the next level. It's time to take this season to new heights. Download Game Changer for free on iOS or Android to start getting valuable stats and video your team can build on. Get the ultimate coaches tool today by downloading Game Changer. Game Changer. Stream, score, connect. Learn more at gc.com/hoopheads. That's gc.com/hoopheads. All right. So during those 2 years before you get to Cornell, what do you think you grew the most in terms of a coach? And in what area of the game, when you look back to that time, do you feel like maybe you had the longest way to go, and how much you improved in a particular aspect of coaching? I don't know if something sticks out for you in that area.
I mean, certainly, I think just everything. It sounds, I don't know. It's a bad answer, but everything.
No, it's a good answer. It's an answer I get. It's the answer I get a lot.
You don't see all the stuff you don't see as a player. You know, like that's, and you shouldn't see as a player. You know, like there's so much that goes into it, that as a player, you're focused on your team, getting better, the goal, all of it. And you're not meant to see what's going on behind the curtain. And so, I mean, all of it, like, and we were recruiting and video, and at Columbia, you know, I was helping with video, and essentially, you know, with me and Jon Jaques, who's now at Florida, like the video coordinators kind of, and just like clipping stuff and putting it on the coaches' laptops, and the stress of that and not screwing that up, and just all of it, you know, stuff like that, where you don't know how much thought and preparation and time and attention to detail goes into it as a player. And so, and I would extend that to like the first year or two at Cornell even, like, and that was pretty interesting because I thought I knew everything about Cornell. Like I played there, and that's where I, you know, grew up essentially as a young adult and had this great experience. And I thought I knew everything about it, and I got there, and it was like shocking, honestly, all the stuff you don't know about a place you think you know. And so, I mean, that's it. Just everything that goes into building a program, and the things that coaches think about that players don't realize. And obviously you learn more. I'm still learning more every day. But yeah, just initially in those years, just all the thought that goes into it that you don't realize when you're the one on the court.
Give me an example of something when you got back to Cornell that you were like, oh man, I didn't realize that was going on when I was playing.
Yeah, I mean, just we did a good job. Our coaching staff did a great job of just keeping us focused, and it was easy. We were winning, right? So when you're winning, it's easy, and you're enjoying it, and you're just laser focused on the task at hand. But at Cornell and other schools at our level, you're sharing the facility with people and other sports, and it's part of the deal, and it's not any different than a lot of other schools in our league and at our level. But that was something, like I don't remember that being ever something I thought about as a player, right? And I came in, and you're talking about schedules and balancing the court and planning in the future and meeting with the other coaches to figure out the times you can go, but you got to go at the right times because of their class schedules. And so like all this stuff that I never, at a place, like I said,
as a player, you just show up, right? You just show up as a player.
Show up, work hard,
practice at 2:00. Yeah. Here I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, yeah,
that's fun.
And that's one example. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that, but just, and every school is unique, and Cornell has its own quirks, but like, that's one where like, I remember early on, I was like, was this going on? And it was, but we just don't know because the coaches do a good job of making you feel important and making the program all that matters. And so I appreciated them even more in hindsight, for sure. And then, the learned a lot early, I guess, and adjusting to life as a coach.
Was it strange to walk to the Cornell coach's office, or did it feel kind of like you were coming home?
But both, mostly coming home. I was coaching. I was hired by Bill Courtney. So not the guy who I played for. So it was a little different. And Coach Courtney was awesome, like one of the best people I've ever met. Still to this day, like I feel that way. Just one of the best people, and gave me a shot, and so genuine, and learned so much from him. And I had no idea what I was doing when he hired me, and I've said that a bunch, but I really didn't, And so like for him to give me a shot like that was pretty incredible. But yeah, like coming home for sure. Like a lot of the people were the same, and in the administration and around the program, and professors, and the senior class that year was the group that like we helped recruit a little bit as when we were seniors as players. So it felt familiar, but different at the same time.
Your time there as an assistant, what do you feel like became your strength or strengths as an assistant when you think about what your contributions were to the staff?
I think, I mean, honestly, having, not the only thing I hope, but like having institutional knowledge, I think became important for me a little bit. Like I said, Cornell has some quirks, and Ivy League in general has a lot of differences, and admissions, financial aid, all that stuff. So I think that was important for me to get a grasp on and become that guy that could be relied on to know all that stuff. And just, that was my thing, and run with it. So that served me well, I think. Player development, like I enjoyed that piece of it, and being on the floor with the guys and digging into what a person needs, what they want to do, how they want to improve. Like that's always something I've enjoyed and take pride in. And regardless of the position, I think that's been fun. I've been with coaches, Coach Courtney and then Coach Earl, these last 8 years, who didn't care. Like, just go. Like, you're 6'7", but you can work out a point guard. Like, who cares? Like, just go and tinker and have fun and get better. And so I think that was something that I've become pretty good at. And I mean, game planning and scouting, I enjoy it too. Like, that's something that, especially with Coach Earl, he's elite at that. And I think, people know how good of a coach he is now, but they may not know how good he is at that part of it. Just like come up with a game plan. What do you need to win a game? What do we need to do based on what we do well, and keeping it simple for a team. And so, learning that over the last 8 years has been awesome. And I've had, I think, the best mentor I could in that way. And so I really enjoy that piece of it. And I want to keep doing it even in this role as much as I can. And, it's something that I really take pride in, and digging into a scouting report and providing the information to our group in a way they can digest. And it's something that I get better at every year. And so that's something I take a lot of pride in for sure too.
How do you balance what you share with the players when you go out and do a scout, or somebody on your staff does a scout? How do you balance what you share with the team that, as you said, that they can digest, versus obviously you're intaking a lot more information and processing a lot more as you put together the game plan and the practices to prepare for that team? How do you decide what to share? How much do you share? What does that look like when you share a scouting report with your team?
Yeah, that's hard. It's one of the hardest. I think it's one of the hardest things that we do. And we talk about it as me and the other assistants that I've worked with. Like, how do you decide? You spend all this time, hours and hours watching film, and these players and these teams like the back of your hand, but really you want to condense it to whatever it is, like a 5-minute clip, for the guys. And it's amazing for me, at least, how like deleting and parting with clips that you spent so much time making. It's like sad, honestly. So like, I don't know, like you have to give yourself up to the reality, and like trust that simple works, like it's kind of what I always try to remind myself, like simple works. And like, it has to be clear and make sense, and it makes sense for like how we play. And so if you can, and I've learned so much from other assistants I worked with too, like these guys the last few years on our staff, like Alex Mumford and Max Ginsberg, they're at William & Mary with Coach Earl now, but they would do things in scouting reports and the way they would describe things to our guys, and I'd be like, I got to do that in mine, like that. They said something in such a clear way. So I think just learning from other people and just being as simple as possible and relating it to your team's core values is kind of what I fall back on. Like we play super fast, and we press, and we want to make the team uncomfortable. And so you fall back and relate it to something the team can hang their hat on a little bit. And that's, that's something that they can revert back to when all else fails. Like, they know we're going to do this, and this is how it applies to how we play. This is what this person does, what he doesn't want to do. And you show them a clip or two of what's worked against, or what hasn't worked, and what's worked against teams that play similarly to us. And then you live with the results. So that's, for me, that's what's worked. But it's hard. It's hard when you know how much time you put into it to cut it. But that's really what you need to do.
Absolutely. So how many, like, if you're talking about you're preparing for a league game, how many video clips are you showing to the entire team? And then I don't know if you break it down player by player and show somebody maybe who they're going to be matched up with. Just how much film are you showing to your players in preparation for an opponent?
Yeah, I mean, we watch a ton of individual film with our guys, but that's mostly like player development and like watching themselves in our games and practice. We don't do a ton of watching our opponents one-on-one with the guys, but what we've done, and I think we'll continue doing, is you show like I said, like maybe a 5-minute edit, and you can kind of show that to the team as a whole, personnel, strengths and weaknesses of each player. And it's kind of fun as a coach when you finish your your edit and what you've done, and you look at it, you can see like the edit or the whatever it is, the clips, they'll tell you, it'll give you a blueprint for what the other team wants to do. You'll have a zillion clips of player X and a few less of player Y, and then a lot less of the third dude, and then the other guys are role players that you probably need to mention, but you don't want to show them. You don't need to show 8 clips of a guy who shoots standstill threes, so like it's just get to the point, be quick. And so, yeah, I mean, it's usually for us, it's been like a 4 or 5 minute personnel segment, like let the guys know who these guys are. And then we've had success just like showing a game segment, like a running game, live action, not clipped, let's say it's whatever Ivy League opponent, let's say it's Yale, and you show them Yale's last game, the first 7 minutes of it, so they can sense the flow of the game, how Yale plays, what they're trying to do. And, we'll pause it and talk about it, but mostly it's just letting the clock run and letting the guys soak in what the other team's trying to do, what they aren't good at. And then you see all the guys doing what you already mentioned in the personnel film. So that kind of cements it even more, I would say.
All right. On the player development side that you mentioned, how do you use or how do you design what you do player development wise for each individual player to maximize what they're getting? So in other words, when you're designing the skill work that you do with them out on the floor, when you're talking about film, how do you balance out showing them, hey, you did this well, or hey, here's an area that you need to improve? Are you showing them any film of other players who maybe have a similar game to them and finding things that, hey, you could add this to your game? Just how do you develop your overall player development program?
Yeah, I mean, I think every guy's different, obviously. We have had success here, showing everyone wants to see themselves in NBA players. So we've had success showing guys, NBA, you hesitate to say equivalents, but guys who do things that a player wants to do, and that's something that always appeals to guys. And so we've, and the first person we did that with, I remember, this guy, junior college transfer, Stephen Julian, just absolutely gifted defender, like elite, long, 6'6", great instincts, ridiculous athlete. And so we started showing him Kawhi Leonard film, and he wasn't Kawhi, but he was pretty close in the Ivy League, and so how Kawhi moved, like he was never too close to his guy. He always spaced it out perfectly. He used his length, like just absolutely the right way. So stuff like that, like that's what we'll do a lot of times. And as far as on the court, I think it depends on the time of year, in the fall and spring, that's a lot. It's totally for the guys and getting them to develop new skills and where do they want to be and where can they go. And in the season, there's a lot of that too. But I would say it's in season, you're creating workouts and creating skill development plans, based on the role that they have on the team that year. Like what does the team need from them to be successful, and what kind of shots they're going to get in games. What moves are going to work. What are go-to things out of our offensive sets and like actions and all that stuff, like things that they'll see in games. And so in season, I would say it's more of that. And then out of season, for sure, like we want to get these guys to a different level. And so I think it changes year to year, but it involves conversations with guys too, like, and hopefully honest, transparent ones where that you can get to the bottom of what they want to be, but also be clear about what the team needs from them in the moment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to define that role, or at least what you see for them in terms of what they can contribute, and do it in such a way that you can help them to get there. Tell me a little bit about the opportunity to become the head coach. Coach Earl leaves and goes to William and Mary. What's the discussion like between you and him prior to him leaving? What's the interview process look like? Did you feel like, hey, the job is kind of mine to lose? Just what was the conversation like heading into the opportunity to become the head coach at Cornell?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, it happened so fast. There wasn't a ton of conversation, like it was like we and for good reason, like we were in the NIT, playing at Ohio State, crazy game, lose a close one, fly back to Ithaca the next morning. And then a couple days later, news breaks. And so you always know, like, we're having a successful season and, Coach Earl is awesome. And we had a feeling like, I don't know, like things might happen one way or the other. And so, but there was no indication for sure that it would, just like in college basketball, things happen. And so, but pretty quickly, that night I got a call from him. He let me know what was going on and, mentioned he thought the AD might give me a call, and she did, and she asked me to be the interim head coach, and of course I accepted. But she mentioned then that there'd be a national search for the coach, and at that time just expressed that I was really interested in the job and wanted to throw my hat in the ring. And the process was a real one, like legitimate search and a national search with a few stages to it and all of it. And I'm super grateful that it was that way. I do feel like it, in a lot of ways, just validated the decision. Like I would have taken just a quick promotion or whatever, but now that it worked
Right.
out this way, like, and I was able to, work on my vision and then have to speak to it and convince people that I was the right guy for the job and describe my thoughts and my vision forward for this place. And the whole process, I'm glad I got to go through it, and it definitely feels good that I was picked, amongst a really qualified, outstanding group of coaches, I think. But then also it's healthy and helped me kind of like propel me forward in the first few months. Like I did a lot of the stuff that I was thinking about during those 2 weeks of that search I've been doing these last few months. And so to have to go through it was great. And I'm really appreciative of the process, and it was efficient, and I'm clearly happy with the decision, but also like I'm happy that I got to go through it as well.
So as you're going through the process and you're having to share your vision for the program, a program that you were first a part of as a player, and then obviously you're a part of as an assistant coach for a long time, how do you differentiate your vision of what you want the program to look like compared to the program that you've been working in as an assistant coach? I always think that's kind of a delicate balance, because obviously you as an assistant coach and as an individual, you've had thoughts and been thinking about things and considering, hey, I like this, maybe I don't like this as much, or here's what I would do in this situation. So how do you do that and yet also be, I'm not sure what the right word is, be mindful of your predecessor, a guy who obviously you're very close to, that you work closely with, and that kind of thing? I don't know if that question makes sense to you at all or not.
Yeah, no, it does. It's been an interesting dance, like, and it's in a good way. Clearly we had success the last few years, and so it's and I don't know if I perfected it yet, but like just understanding why we're here, why I'm in this position and the reason for the success we've had. And, a lot of the things that we do here, we're very intentional and for a reason and are good for us. And, we're going to continue, but at the same time, like, just being true to myself and who I am. And so I think I've done as good a job as I can so far. Like the transition has been awesome. Like you come off a winning season and we return we didn't lose anyone we didn't expect to. We lost a few grad transfers in the Ivy League. You can't play as a graduate student. So, we had 4 graduate transfers who had the COVID year. They're going somewhere else. And, we're super happy for them. But besides that, we return everyone. And so everyone's happy, excited, return a lot of guys, and there's confidence and enthusiasm for how we play. So I think it would be a shame to change too much. And what Coach Earl created is just, it's amazing here, the style of play and what we do and the uniqueness to it. But I will be myself. We're different people, and we're similar in a lot of ways, but we're also, we're different. And I'm going to be myself. And that's something too. I think the team can sense it. They know who I am. They know who Coach is. And in the spring, and it wasn't anything that was totally, it happened organically, just get on the court, do workouts, and be myself. And I've feel good about it. I feel like my voice was natural, organic, and maybe it changed a little bit as the head coach, but I think it's true to who I am. And, we'll keep walking that line of being a little different person, but also, being true to why we've been successful here these last few years.
How do you navigate, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but maybe go a little bit more into detail of the transition from I'm an assistant coach where the relationship with players is one way. And then when you become a head coach, there's something in the dynamic that changes. How have you either thought about that or tried to navigate it? Obviously, part of it is, right, I'm going to be myself and continue to be who I am, but maybe take it one step further just in terms of how the players are looking at you, how that relationship, sometimes obviously the assistant coach is sort of the confidant that a player can go to. The head coach maybe is, someone that isn't quite as approachable. Obviously for you being in the program, you've already built that relationship with a lot of the guys as an assistant. So just what's that transition been like, and how have you thought about navigating that part of it?
Yeah, so far it's been great. We're like I said, we're still in the honeymoon phase, I think, where we're everyone, and I'm serious. It's kind of, you may know, in the Ivy League, we're not allowed to do workouts on the floor in the summer. And so we had 3 or 4 weeks in the spring after the coaching change where, and I'm thankful for it. Everyone's excited. And the whole program, all the guys and myself and Jalen Hayes, who was the one coach who stayed with me from last year's staff, we're all I wish we could keep this going for 3 or 4 more weeks. It's great. Everyone's excited. The effort was just insane, motivated, great culture, everything you'd want. It was awesome. It looked, if you walked into a practice, it was really exciting and encouraging. And, the staff we brought on who was able to catch a workout or two, they're like, holy moly, you guys are whatever, mid-season form, and this looks great. And I do feel it'll change in the fall once they get here, and it's not bad. It's just the reality. Once we start, you talking about playing time eventually and roles, and things get a little more stressful because you're preparing for the season and all that stuff. I know it'll change. And to your point, these guys and we're close. I have good relationships with these guys, and I'm proud of that. And have been thinking about, probably just to address it early on, one of the first meetings, just I am who I am. I'm the same person, but there are responsibilities in this new role that, require me to make some decisions that you guys might not like. And part of this is reconciling the two things. I'm, same guy, cares about you. I hopefully they know that. I think they do. And, but obviously this job requires certain things. And so that's a conversation that I do want to have with the team. I think it's important, to be able to be transparent. It is what it is. I'm the head coach, and, ultimately have to make some decisions that some guys might not like, but I do think this group we have it's special for a lot of reasons. And, pretty typical of the Ivy League. These guys are here for the right reasons, and they're awesome people. And these guys we have specific to Cornell, like very unselfish, and the style of play we do have requires it. So they get it. And, but it does, yeah, I mean, it's a new role and a new responsibility, and the relationship should change a little bit, but hopefully, at the core of it, not too much.
How'd you put together your staff? What was your process for that?
Yeah, I mean, like anything, you lean on people you trust and who have your best interests in mind. So yeah, for me, I mean, it's like keep mentioning them, but Coach Donahue and Coach Smith, and talking to them a lot and figuring out who are guys that they trust and would trust to mesh with me and all that stuff. And a lot of conversations and a lot of outreach from a lot of people in those few weeks. You have to sift through that stuff, but you do rely on your friends and people have your back. And yeah, I mean, I'm super proud and excited and just really happy with the staff we have. And have a former Division I head coach and Mike Brennan, who's like the lowest ego head coach I think you can find. And he's amazing. And, Mark McGonigal, he was an assistant at Richmond, and, a common friend of ours, Kevin Hovde, who I know you've talked to, he put us in touch, and just conversations, really, it was clear that we clicked. And, I mentioned Jalen, he stayed and is promoted to assistant coach. And then Luke Colwell, coming from VMI, where he was an assistant, and I think he's a steal. He's awesome and just super creative and great for Cornell. So I'm really thankful. I think the staff is awesome, and the priority all along was to kind of find guys who would just echo what's made us good, and our guys develop on the court, take that seriously, work hard, care about basketball, and so have guys who want to be on the floor with them and be in the trenches with them, do the skill development we're talking about. That's important. We're not getting finished products here, but we are getting guys who are hungry and are good fits and care. And so to find a staff who you trust, but also, will be on the floor and, sweating with the guys and watching film with them, like that was probably the biggest priority for me in the process.
What has the planning in the off season amongst you and your staff, what does that look like? What are some of the things that you've talked about offensively, defensively, culture-wise, when you guys are sitting down in the office? What have been the priorities for you and making sure that your staff understands?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's been making sure they get to know the guys and their strengths and weaknesses and how we've played, the last year or so. Like I said, it's 3 new staff members. So a lot of it is when we do have time, just throwing on a game, going through the season and letting the tape roll. And it'll take a while because we'll pause it and we'll talk about, why we ran this action there or what we were thinking on defense there. But that's really good for the guys the new coaches to get to know the players and what they do well. And I want them to form as much as they can. And it's probably hard because, I'm talking and thinking out loud a lot of the time, but I want them to form their own opinions of these guys. And that'll happen more once they get back to campus here in a few weeks. But just honestly, a lot of film and a lot of discussion on where we can, areas of improvement. We've been one of the better offensive teams in the country the last few years. And I want to strive to improve in other areas. Defensively, we were middle of the road last year, became okay, but obviously, and to be a championship team and get over that hump, you got to be a little better. And rebounding, we got to improve that too. So a lot of the conversations are, how do you improve in these other areas without sacrificing too much on the offense? Because, we know there's only so much time in a day and you can only emphasize so many things. And we've been elite offensively because we emphasize it, it is what it is. Like we spend a lot of time on it and we talk about it and it's part of the culture, what we do. And so just figuring out how to improve without sacrificing too much of what's made us successful. Those have been the main themes of our conversations.
What's your thoughts on practice design in terms of how you like to structure a practice offensively, defensively, player development? Do you follow sort of the same pattern every day? Do you mix it up? Just what's your practice planning look like?
Yeah, I mean, we've one of the great things about Coach Earl, it's all been collaborative for as long as he was the head coach here, and just like we're planning practice, everyone get in the office, let's think about this. And so I'm lucky and fortunate to be involved in those conversations for a handful of years now. And I mean, it maps out similarly every day. Usually it was some kind of warm up, which was, the guys know, and it's a kind of a grab bag of different skill stuff we would do: passing, dribbling, shooting. And then you move on to defense, and that would, it would vary depending on the kind of the time of year and, who you're playing and all that stuff. But defense for a little bit, you're trying to guard and work on a concept, maybe some scouting report stuff, depending on who you're playing. And then offense. And offense for us, it's a lot of it's just playing, especially early in the season. And so I don't expect to be too much different, in terms of like the format and schedule of practice. But, for us, like playing is really important, and just getting up and down 5-on-5. And we have lots of different ways we do it. Advantage games where for us, we get in transition so much. So to create different, sort of silly games where you like have disadvantages and advantages, it just puts guys in situations where they're going to be at when the lights are on. And so we do a lot of that stuff. And of course, 5-on-5, where, we're not stopping it too much. We want the pace to be fast, and, we limit the shot clock, so they have to shoot fast and all that stuff that a lot of teams do. But for us, it's really important to the style of play. So yeah, I mean, it's usually warm up, defense, offense with some shooting in between. And we don't go so long typically. And that's, I don't think people overthink it, and going over 2 hours in a college basketball practice, I don't think it adds much. So, I mean, yeah, like an hour 45 to 2 hours tops. And if the guys want to stick around and shoot a little bit after, they do. And, that's that.
How do you balance out instruction versus keeping the flow of practice going? Because I know that's something that a lot of young coaches struggle with. How do I correct players, and how do I help guys to make better decisions? And yet I want the flow of practice to be fast. I want the pace to be fast. I want guys getting up and down and getting lots of reps, which is obviously how you get better. How do you balance out letting them know what they need to know, and yet not interrupting the flow of practice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll be a challenge for me. Like I want to think of myself as, letting the guys play and let the flow just occur naturally. And I'm sure when I'm in it, I'll want to stop it, and, I'll kick myself afterwards. I think, yeah, again, like Brian was awesome at letting the guys figure things out, especially when it was 5-on-5 and full, and they're playing. Like it was sort of like that was their time. And a lot of it was because of the style of play. We wanted pace to be fast and to not sacrifice things for that. We do play a lot of 3-on-3 in the half court, and especially in the preseason and in season too, especially early in the season. Different versions of 3-on-3, different actions you'll see and what we do. And those are the moments that we've used to teach mostly, right? Like those are good. You have 3 guys on the court, both offense and defense, but mostly offense, and stopping it and asking guys questions about why they made the decision they did and what did you see and all that stuff. I mean, those are really good teaching moments. And I think those are the moments where you do want to stop it, especially for young guys who you're trying to acclimate into your program and are learning the actions and learning how you want to play. And last year was kind of interesting. Like we had a really veteran team who had been a part of the system for 2 or 3 years, And I don't think we did as much 3-on-3 early in the season. And at some point during the year, we realized we had these two freshmen who were pretty good. Jake Fegan and Jacob Beckles, those are their names. And we're like, hey, but they're a little slower on the actions. And it was because we had all these veterans that we were just kind of on whatever it was, step D instead of step A with early in the season. So there is a balance you have to walk, I think. And eventually we got there with those two guys and they helped us win a lot of games. But 3-on-3 is great for that, to teach and to slow it down and put them in half court situations that you're going to be in, because the fast break stuff's only going to work, so often. Once you get to Ivy League play, these teams know how we play, and you have to grind out possessions and make the right reads and all that stuff. And so I think 3-on-3 will be really valuable for us. We bring in 6 new guys this year, so I plan on doing a lot of that, especially early on.
And see where the added space that you have in 3-on-3 makes those reads at least slightly simpler. Plus, clearly, even when you're in 5-on-5, most often the actions involve directly at least 3 players at a time. So you can kind of put your guys in spots where you want to see them. And then because you don't have that other congestion on the floor, you can kind of dial in on what those guys are doing at the 3-on-3. So I can completely see the value in that. When you talk about the new guys that you brought into the program, tell me a little bit about recruiting philosophy, what you guys over the years have looked for in a player. Obviously, there's a certain level of skill that a player needs to be able to have. Obviously, the first thing you look at is, can they get into school and their grades and academics and all those things. But once you get beyond the fact that, hey, this kid has the talent to play here and has the academics to play here, what are some of those intangible things that you guys have looked for and will continue to look for that make a guy a good fit for you at Cornell?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the Ivy League, you mentioned one of them, checking the academic box, and you have to figure out financial aid as well. And then that's kind of one that's almost bigger than the academic piece, honestly. There are guys everywhere who have the grades and value what this degree will do for you, but you have to figure out if it's right for the family and if they can make it work. And so that's something that does require a lot of legwork and conversations early on. And when you do figure that out, that kind of puts you in a nice little, separate box where you can take someone pretty seriously as a recruit. And so we try to figure that out as soon as we can. But yeah, I mean, the great thing about this it's not new anymore, but a few years of this system is you can start to recruit to it and show people the success it's brought. And that's pretty fun. Everyone wants to play fast, but not everyone has the numbers to back it up. And that's exciting. We can show people we're 5th in the country in tempo and 2nd in 2-point field goal percentage and top 10 in 3-point attempts and all that stuff. So that's cool. So you can talk to people about it, and we're trying to find the right fits for it. And the skill stuff, it's important. And you got to have guys who are shooters, but don't hesitate to shoot, we'll shoot it when there's daylight, and that's important to us. And if you miss a few, you're going to keep shooting. That matters. And then a couple of guys who can play fast and push and see and really enjoy passing. For us, the passing piece is probably the most important of the skills, unselfish guys who enjoy setting the teammates up, enjoy that act and enjoy their teammate making a wide open 3 that they set them up for. That's a big part of what we do. Across all positions, our posts, that can be developed a little bit, but to have a post who likes to pass and is willing, that's important as well. And so, we're still figuring it out. I'm trying to, and that's been a lot of the conversation this summer too, in recruiting. How do we recruit to, the guy exactly like the guys we lost, or do you recruit, a certain type of player? And so that's been a lot of the conversation, but there are certain, characteristics that we do look for, and it's just guys who go hard. We ask a lot of our guys, effort wise and the way we play. So just effort, competitiveness, and I would say just unselfishness, really caring about the passing and being able to cut and give themselves up for someone else. And those things we notice in recruiting, I think.
Passing piece to me is something I feel like is way underrated in terms of putting together a cohesive team. Because I know myself as a coach, like I tend to gravitate towards those types of players who are unselfish. And then when you think back to, and I don't know if you feel this way, thinking about it from a playing standpoint, but there are guys, or I should say were guys, since I'm not really playing anymore, but there were guys that you'd step out on the floor and play pickup with them for like 2 minutes. You'd already be like, I never want to play with this dude again because
Right.
they're just dribbling around and shooting, and passing is a last resort. And you can go in a gym and watch and find those guys all over the place who I watch them. I'm like, man, I would just never want that guy on my team because passing is just a complete afterthought. They only pass after they've exhausted every opportunity to try to get a shot off. So it's interesting to hear you say that that's something that you really look for. Because to me, when you're trying to build a cohesive team, that unselfishness, I think with a lot of guys, like it's baked in. I think that's a hard thing to teach, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I mean, that's something we've talked about with the previous staff, and we probably have this summer too, like recruiting guys you'd enjoy playing with. And that matters, like it's I think for any team, but especially for how we play, we are sharing it, and it's part of who we are. And so and it's pretty obvious, and there's great players everywhere who they're going to be great somewhere else, and they might not be for us, and that's okay. And yeah, no, it's we think differently, I think it's and again, just going back to the idea of recruiting guys you'd like to be around and would like to have on your team. I don't know. It's a natural fit for the way we think. So yeah, and it's been successful. And I think the unselfishness piece, we brought in a few guys who like, maybe they weren't the best passers out of high school, the most skilled guys, but you could sense they were just like, they're all about it and all about improving and great teammates. And those guys eventually became pretty good passers and really good cutters and just do things that, I don't know, unselfish winning basketball players do. And so there's something to that. I mean, like I said before, I'd love to get like perfect basketball players here, and maybe one day we will, but I think we got to recruit guys who are great fits for our culture. And it's the unselfishness and the effort and the care about each other is what we are striving for.
Absolutely. All right. As you head into your first season, I want to ask you a final 2-part question. So part one, as you look ahead to this season, what do you see as being your biggest challenge? And then part two of the question, when you think about what you get to do every single day, what brings you the most joy? So your biggest challenge and then your biggest joy.
Ooh, yeah, I mean, biggest challenge I think is just, it's, I don't know, it's simple and obvious answer, but yeah, I don't think I don't know when I'm going to have figured the head coach thing out. And so I don't think I ever will. It's a constant growth, and so figuring that out and leaning on the staff every single day, it's totally new, and that's okay. And I'm definitely at peace with it and excited and confident at the same time, but also know that that'll be a challenge. Like some days of doubt and understanding and, fighting that and, staying true to, myself and what we think works for this program. And so, fighting that battle, I think that'll be a challenge, and probably one that every head coach still deals with, no matter how many years they've been coaching. But what gives me the greatest joy, I mean, I would say being around our guys is a joy every single day. They're awesome. And I've mentioned a bunch tonight, I think, how unselfish they are. And, we're lucky in our league, I think in general, to be around pretty high achieving, awesome, well-rounded, interesting people, so that's exciting for me to come in the gym every day and be around them. And I also just like to have my family around them too. I think that's a huge part of it. And I'm excited my daughter turns 5 in a couple months, and my son actually turns 1 tomorrow, so he won't know what's going on, obviously, but like my daughter does, and she loves these guys, and she knows their names, and like, you know, she came to camp the other day, and we had some guys working, and I don't know, it was great to see her just recognize the older guys and be excited and comfortable and go up and give them a hug. And that's, I don't know, that's what it's about, you know, her seeing these guys be together and be around each other and care about each other, and people from all over the places who look different. That is important to me with my kids, you know, like watching our guys be around each other. And so that just I guess our guys in general, they bring me joy, and them being around my kids, I'm looking forward to that in the future.
Putting your basketball family and your real family together, that's a great way to do it. It's a great way to think about it. And again, if you can have both sides of that equation be happy, which isn't always easy when you talk about balance, but when you can bring those two together in a positive way, I don't think there's anything better than that when it comes to coaching. Before we wrap up, Jon, I want to give you a chance to share, how can people reach out to you, connect with you, find out more about you and your program, whether you want to share email, social media, website, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then after you do that, I will jump back in and wrap things up.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you having me on, Mike. This has been awesome. And I would honestly love to connect with anyone. My email is on our website, but it's jdj26@cornell.edu. And feel free to reach out. Seriously, any coaches out there who want to, you know, chop it up and talk. I'm seriously open book, and would love to learn from whoever's out there. And our program, you know, if you happen to be strolling through Ithaca or driving through, hit us up, and we'll be back working out here in a few weeks, so we can start workouts as soon as school starts. And so, yeah, I mean, would love to have you. So if you're in town or think you will be, reach out to us, and doors are always open.
Awesome. Jon, cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule tonight to jump on with us. Really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.